very special who's here, who's going to recite some naat for us. His name is Nadir Khan. He's a very well-known nasheed. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Nadir Khan to the stage as he will recite some naat.
At the doorstep to your abode I dismount. From the right I rode and dragged my guilty feet. Alhamdulillah. The shoes come off as I knock the door. Eyes downcast upon the floor, struggling to repeat hallelujah. Alhamdulillah, hallelujah, hallelujah, alhamdulillah. Waiting for you to let me in, I cast a blaming glance within, grateful that I'm here, hallelujah. I'll knock forever if I must, though my knocking hands may turn to dust. Every knock with hope and fear, alhamdulillah, oh, alhamdulillah, hallelujah, hallelujah, alhamdulillah. I've been knocking a while and I've grown so old. Glad I'm a knocker, not a wayward soul. But it's you that I desire, hallelujah. More than anyone or anything, more than heaven and earth and all within, more than freedom from the fire, alhamdulillah, hallelujah. How could I have been so wrong? You've been with me all along, on the path and at the door, alhamdulillah. When I fell, got up and raised my hands and prayed again for one more chance. When my face was on the floor, hallelujah, oh, alhamdulillah, hallelujah, hallelujah, alhamdulillah. Now I celebrate like a little boy. Once guilty feet now dance with joy. My Lord is here with me, hallelujah. I whirl and dance with no restraint, no grievance, nor complaint. The truth has set me free, hallelujah. Oh, alhamdulillah, 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 alhamdulillah. It's okay. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. It was good, come on. Thank you. I'm going going to do something called Nusrat Fateh Ali Jackson. If you are trigger happy with the fatwa gun, please don't shoot at me. Sa ni dha pa dha ni sa Malikul Mulk Malikul Mulk La sharika lahu Wahdahu la ilaha illahu Shams Tabrez kar khuda talaban Shams Tabrez kar khuda talaban khushbu khala ilaha illahu تیرے ہی نام سے ہر ابتدا ہے تیرے ہی نام تک ہر انتہا ہے تیری حمد و ثنا الحمدللہ کہ تو میرے محمد کا خدا ہے Ni ni sa 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 ni sa 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 ni sa ga re re sa ni sa 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 ni sa 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 ni sa re sa ni ni sa 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 ni sa 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 ni ma ga re sa ni sa 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 ni sa 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 ni sa re Allahu 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 Allah Allahu 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 Allah ho Maula re For once in my life, oh, it's gonna feel real good. It's gonna make a difference. Gonna make it right. Oh, as I turned up the collar on my favorite winter coat, this wind is blowing in my mind. No, see the kids in the street. Not enough to eat. Who am I to be blind, pretending not to see their need? A summer's disregard, a broken bottle top, and one man soul. They follow each other on the wind and know, because they got nowhere to go. That's why I want you to know. I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways, and no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, or take a look at yourself, then make a change. Allahu, 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 Allahu. یہ زمین جب نہ تھی یہ جہاں جب نہ تھا چاند سورج نہ تھے آسماں جب نہ تھا راز حق بھی کسی پر آیا جب نہ تھا وہ جب نہ تھا کچھ یہاں جب نہ تھا کچھ یہاں تھا مگر تو ہی تو اللہ 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 بشر کے لیے بشر ثنا کے لیے تمام ہم سزاوار خدا کے لیے عطا کے سامنے یا رب خطا کا ذکر ہی کیا کہ تو عطا کے لیے ہے بشر خطا کے لیے اللہ 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 I've been a victim of a selfish kind of love. It's time that I realize there are some with no home, not a nickel to loan. Could it be really me pretending that they're not alone? A willow deeply scarred, somebody's broken heart and a washed out dream. They follow the pattern of the wind you see, because they got no place to be. That's why I'm starting with me. I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways, and no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, so take a look at yourself, then make a change. Gotta get it right while you got the time, cause you can't close your mind. Allahu, 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 Allah, 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 Nini sa 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 ni sa 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 ni sa ga re, Nini sa 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 ni sa 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 ni ma ga re, Nini sa 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 ni sa 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 ni sa ga re, sa ni sa 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 ni sa 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 ni sa re sa, Nini sa 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 ni sa 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 ni ma ga re, sa ni sa 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 ni sa 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 ni sa re sa, ni sa dha ni pa dha ma re ga, ni sa dha ni pa dha ma pa dha ma pa ga ma ga re sa ga re. Allah, Allahu, 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 Allahu. La ilaha teri shan ya wahdahu, tu khayal o tajassus tu hi arzu, आँख की रोशनी दिल की आवाज तू, आँख की रोशनी दिल की आवाज तू, खालिक़े कुल है तू, इसमें क्या गुफ्तगू, सारे आलम को है तेरी जुस्तजू, तेरी जलवागरी है आया चार सू, था भी तू है भी तू, था भी तू है भी तू, होगा भी तू ही तू. अल्लाहु 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 अल्लाह. Sorry, it was better than that. Thank you. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Muazzez Khawateen wa Hazrat, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, chers amis, mesdames et messieurs, Assalamu alaikum, bienvenue and good evening. We're honored that you were able to take time out of your extraordinarily busy schedules and on a traffic-laden and rain-laden night being able to join the Premier and many of my colleagues. I would invite my parliamentary colleagues to please join me on stage to be acknowledged. They are the MPP for Mississauga South, Charles Souza, and Minister of Finance. Please join us, Charles, on stage. The Honourable Harinder Mully, MPP for Brampton Springdale. The Honourable Amrit Mungat, Mississauga, Brampton South, the Honorable the Honorable Indira Naidu Harris, the MPP for Halton. Please join us. And if there's any other of my colleagues, first of all, it's a privilege and honor. And of course, I will introduce my dear colleague and friend and mentor, the Honorable Yasser Naqvi, who, as you will know, is the highest ranking Muslim politician in North America, being not only the government House Leader, but the Attorney General of the province of Ontario. He will be introducing the Premier momentarily. And as you can see, we are also now graced by the presence of the Honorable Kathleen Wynne, the Premier of the province of Ontario. I wanted, first of all, to welcome all of my colleagues to this celebration of Islamic Heritage Month. And with your permission, Premier, I wanted to once again thank you, and on behalf of my younger version of myself here, little Salman. As you will know, Premier, he is named after my late father, who passed away about 4 years ago. He, as I continue to think, was the biggest liberal of them all. And we were delighted and honored and very, very pleased. I know there's competition from the Naqvi household right now.
I was saying your mother is a bigger liberal.
Yes, absolutely. And we wanted to just thank you once again publicly. In the midst of an extraordinary schedule, the Premier of the province found time to join us at our home for the 4th birthday of Salman Qadri. So with that, I would now like to invite notre Procureur Général, the Honorable Yasser Naqvi.
Thank you very much. And Shafiq, Assalamu alaikum. Shafiq is very, very modest in understating his contribution to our community. As you know, Shafiq has been a member of provincial parliament since 2003, serving the great community of Etobicoke North. Shafiq is a friend, he's a mentor who's blazed the trail for so many people. So Shafiq, thank you very much for your continued public service. Thank you very much to every single one of you for being here to join us in order to celebrate Islamic Heritage Month. This month is an important part of our calendar in Canada in order to celebrate the contributions of Canadian Muslims and Muslims right here in our province of Ontario to this great country and province of ours. It is an opportunity for all of us to learn more about the Islamic culture, the tradition, the heritage, and the faith, and be able to engage in our schools, in our workplaces, with our neighbors, the great qualities of the Islamic faith. But as you know, the work is just not limited to month of October. The work continues on every single day, every single month. And the best way, in my view, to really show the greatness of the Muslim faith is by our own actions. The way we've been always taught through the Holy Quran and the deeds of Prophet Muhammad, may be peace be upon him, and by living and contributing to this great society of ours every single day. It's a great honor for me to introduce our Premier Kathleen Wynne. And before I think you know her quite well in terms of the actions she takes every single day. She is absolutely determined to defend the diversity and inclusiveness of our society. And this is the most remarkable thing about Kathleen Wynne. That diversity and inclusiveness are just not simply words for her. She firmly believes that we have to do the difficult work of putting diversity and inclusion and respect for each other in action. And every single day, my colleagues will attest, we see her in action talking about how does that mean, how do we make those difficult decisions so that every single Ontarian, regardless of their ethnicity, their religion, their background, no matter when they came to this country, 6 generations ago or 6 months ago, feel included and part of our society. And I personally admire that discipline and that tenacity in our Premier, and we are confident that she is the leader, not just in Ontario, but across this great country of ours, which is going to ensure that the rights of Muslims are defended every single day in our country, be it in Quebec, be it in Ontario, or British Columbia, anywhere else. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your friend, my leader, the Premier of our province, the Honorable Kathleen Wynne.
Thank you, Yasser. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. It's wonderful to be here with all of you. And I just want to say that I just left in Kitchener-Waterloo. I just left a meeting of the Rohingya community, and there's some people who were there. Who are the people who were there? There, back, yes. So to all of the members of the Rohingya community who are here, I just want to say that it is not that it is our obligation to stand up and say that everyone's rights should be protected, that we should understand better what is going on in Burma. It is our human responsibility. It is our humanity that demands of us that we understand, that we do everything that we can. I'm very pleased that Prime Minister Trudeau has asked Bob Rae to be a special envoy. I think that will help us enormously in understanding how we can be of more help. But the meeting that I just came from, there were young kids, so kids in high school, telling us the stories of what's going on in their families in Burma, and saying to us, you know, we have to make sure that the money that goes to the camps, that goes to Burma, actually goes into the hands of the people who need it. And that is some of the work that Bob Rae can help us with. So I just want to assure you that we will do everything that we can to support the work of the federal government, to stand up and say that it is our honor, it is our responsibility as human beings to open our doors, to be here. We were the first province that stepped up and said, when the Syrian refugee crisis was reaching a pitch, we stood up and said, we will take Syrian refugees here in Ontario. And now we have a federal government that understands how important that is. So I'm very happy to be here with all of you. I'm very happy to be here with my colleagues. You know, our caucus, in our caucus, about a third of the members of our caucus were not born in Canada. They were born somewhere else. And so that's a beautiful thing. And I know there are scientists in the room. And so when Yasser, and thank you Yasser for that lovely introduction. It's an honor to serve with all of you. But you know, when Yasser says that I believe in my core, that diversity is our strength, and it's something to be celebrated, and it is something to be protected, and something to be encouraged. The laws of nature are such that entities, ecosystems are stronger when there's diversity. We know that. That's why we have a policy in our government of biodiversity, of advancing biodiversity. So it only makes sense to me that a population would be stronger if we have differences, if we have people with different perspectives. Our table at our caucus, in our caucus room, is stronger because there are people who can stand up and say, this is my life experience. And this is how people who have shared my life experience will understand the policy that we're putting forward. So from my perspective, it is in all of our best interests as a people that we understand that embracing one another, not just tolerating one another. It's not about tolerance. It is about deeply understanding what each of us has gone through. And we can't fully. You know, I can't fully put myself in your shoes. I haven't seen the things that you have. I haven't grown up the way you have grown up, and you and I don't share the same experience. But we can try. We can keep trying and keep giving each other our perspective, and it's especially important. It's especially important when we actually have a disagreement. When we agree, well, that's very nice. We can sit around and pat each other on the back. But when we have a disagreement, that's when it's important. That's when we have to dig into our humanity and say, okay, let me try to understand what you are saying. Explain it to me. And there are people in this room, and you know who you are. there are at least a dozen people in this room who have sat down with me and have explained to me a perspective and helped me to understand what the community perspective is, what the perspective of the mosque is, what the perspective of Islam is, and you've taught me. And so I am here tonight to celebrate with you as your sister human, to say that it's a very important moment in our history on this planet, that we understand that difference is what actually makes us human and brings us together. I have said nothing that is on these pieces of paper, so let me just see if there's something here that my staff will say, why didn't you say that? Well, actually, I want to just. This is an interesting piece of research that we have done. So, the first recorded birth of a Muslim child in Ontario is from. Do you know? Who knows the year? 1800s. Yeah, it's in the 1800s. Do I hear 1850? No. Do I hear 1868? 1868. 1868, the first recorded birth of a Muslim child in Ontario, just 1 year after our country was founded. The Muslim community has been in Canada since the beginning. And some of the earliest Muslim immigrants to Canada literally helped unite this country by working as laborers on the Canadian Pacific Railway. Because remember, that railway, that was an impossible piece of infrastructure. You know, you think it's hard to build high-speed rail from Kitchener-Waterloo to Toronto. How about building a railway across the country, through the Rockies, out to the ocean on both sides? That was a feat. That was a magic infrastructure project. So I kind of smile when people say, oh, well, you'll never get high-speed rail built. You'll never. Yes, we will. We can do that. We built the Canadian Pacific Railway, and the Muslim community helped us do that. So, it is extremely important given what's going on in the world, and you know, we can look to the United States. I was just in Detroit for the meeting of the Great Lakes governors, and we were talking about NAFTA, and in the conversation about NAFTA, of course, we have to talk about the philosophy or lack of philosophy that is coming from the White House, and part of the xenophobia that we see south of the border, we see in other parts of the world as well, and we see in other parts of this country. We cannot be too smug about being Canadian, even though in our diversity we can be a beacon for the world. The reality is that in Quebec right now, there is a piece of legislation that we would never advance in Ontario. We would never put that forward in Ontario. Anything that is going to isolate people, create division, that is intentionally meant to marginalize people, has no place here. It has no place in Ontario, and I would argue it has no place in Canada. But we have to recognize that right now, in the world, including in Canada, those forces of division are loud. They have loud voices. And it pains me that we have to say that, but that's the fact. And so it makes our vigilance and our intentional embrace of one another even more important. So the work that we are doing as a government is meant to include everyone and meant to create a fairer society. All I know to do, beyond having Islamic Heritage Month and making sure that we do everything we can to work in partnership at the community level, what we have to do is create a fair society. We have to create a society where everyone has an opportunity, an equal opportunity to advance, whether they come from a wealthy family, whether they come from a more modest family, whether they have brown skin or black skin, whether they have been, as Yasser said, here for 6 generations or 6 months. Apart from Indigenous people, we're all in the same boat. We all came here to create a better life. And so that means that your government's responsibility is to create the conditions for fairness. free tuition for 210,000 students in our colleges and universities right now. Free prescription medication so that the young woman the young mom who I met in Thorncliffe Park in an auditorium, who has 5 kids, all of whom were sick at one point or another last year, when I told her that we were going to provide free medication for those kids starting January 1st, she was very, very grateful, because it's a burden to pay for that prescription medication. So that is another way that we can create fairness. Raising the minimum wage, making sure that the people in our community who do essential work, you know. I had an argument with a right-wing talk show host a number of months ago about what's really important work and what's not really important work. And as my mom used to say to me, because we would talk about where people fit in society. And my dad was a doctor, and so he kind of had this status in our small community of Richmond Hill at the time. And that really bothered my mother, because she would say, and what if nobody picked up the garbage? And what if nobody cleaned the streets? And what if nobody made sure that when we went into a store, there was somebody to serve us? What if nobody ran those businesses? So we need to make sure that everyone can look after themselves and can look after their families. That's why we're raising the minimum wage. We'll work with small businesses. We know that there are challenges. But if you're working full-time in Ontario, which is leading economic growth in the G7 countries, if you're working full-time in Ontario, you should be able to feed your family. You should be able to look after yourself. So, I know that Mohammed Fakih wanted to be here tonight. I want to acknowledge him, because we're so grateful that he partnered with us. He has done so much for the community, and talk about someone who walks the talk and makes sure that people have access to opportunity. And Mohammed Fakih is one of those people, as are so many of you in this room. So, thank you so much. October is about celebrating the many contributions of Muslim Canadians, whether it's Nazem Kadri scoring goals for the Leafs, which we love that, or whether it's the stories that we'll see by Janelle Massa, the first TV journalist in Canada to wear a hijab. Good for her. Or whether we celebrate the fact that Mayor Nahid Nenshi was just re-elected by the people of Calgary. And I will say, my particular contribution to that was my son has been out there working on his campaign. So happy Islamic Heritage Month, everyone. Thank you so much for all you do for the community. It is an honor to be here with you. Shukran.
Assalamu alaikum. It's an honor to see many of you who have for so long contributed to our communities. And all of you, I've come to know, a number of you, have become very familiar. Familiar with our caucus, familiar with the causes, familiar with what's necessary to still continue to provide and advocate for even more, to do even better. I see an imam who's here. I recognize a number of you. I see Saquan Tethi, a candidate, and inshallah he will join our caucus next year to also continue to provide for that diversity. The Premier spoke eloquently, and you can appreciate how passionate this individual is, who has for a long time advocated for the rights of individuals of all sorts. Our caucus reflects our community. And you see that in our caucus much more than you see in others. And that is because the leadership is inclusive. The Premier has always called upon us to do better, to be more considerate of the different viewpoints that exist, similar to when we have our debates in your living rooms. And your young people are asking for them to be better recognized as we move forward. The Premier fights for that. The Premier has fought
for better inclusion and diversity in the boardrooms of big business, of small business, of sectors. And why? Because they do better when we have diversity and other points of view and greater contributions by the entire society. The Premier has always pushed us to do better in that regard as well. So Premier, on behalf of our friends, on behalf of all of us who are celebrating Islamic Month, on behalf of all of us as Canadians and Ontarians, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for what you do every day for the betterment of our society.
Thank you, Minister Sousa, and most especially thanks to you, Sister Kathleen. In the spirit of both past, present, and future members of Provincial Parliament, I would now like, with your permission and in your presence, Premier Wynne, to invite to the podium two recently nominated candidates who will, inshallah, be joining us in the Legislature of Ontario. And they are Nahid Yakubian from Aurora Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill, and Sukwant Teddy. Please join us. While they're joining us and being acknowledged, I would now invite to the podium Wali Shah, who is a University of Toronto, Mississauga student, and also you'll be pleased to know the designated Poet Laureate of the City of Mississauga, who will share with us some poetry.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Wally. Everyone say hi, Wally. Hey, there we go. And I just want to say thank you to Ms. Wynne, just because the words that you said were so powerful. And I was just going to come up here and share some poetry, but I've got a very specific poem in mind that I want to share now. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. You guys ready? You guys ready? Yes. Awesome. When I came to Canada with my mom in '97, my mom told me that North America was the land of freedom, of opportunity, and multiculturalism. She always told me that we were home. But lately it's been starting to feel less like home. More like isolation and feeling alone, because things that I hear got me chilled to the bone. We're still fighting discrimination based on religion and skin tone. And even years after segregation and the Indigenous Holocaust, all I see is people walking over other people, guns cocking over people, and people talking over people, trying to drown out their voices. But I hear them loud and clear, and I see them because they're here. The melting pot of North America runs on fear, because here, people are more concerned with celebrity gossip and living urban. That cultural awareness is just a burden. Wake up, meet real people, and start learning, because people that fear Muslims avoid Sikh people wearing turbans. And that's not even something that Muslims wear. And to that point, there's something else that I'd like to share. The Muslims that brought down the Twin Towers. They brought our people nothing but shame. Why would terrorism be something Allah would ever proclaim? I think they're ignorantly looking for somebody to blame. Because my mom was walking home, broad daylight in Mississauga, Ontario, walking down by Dundas near Ontario, when a car pulled up and threw coffee on her, threw garbage on her, no respect or honor. They drove off as she wept on that street corner, and they yelled, "Go home, you terrorist. Go home, you terrorist." Home. But this is home. Home of the true north, strong and the free. This is where you can be whoever you wanted to be. Home is where we embrace differences between you and me. Home is where we celebrate our diversity. Home is where your neighbors catch you in adversity. Don't you agree? So to the real terrorists, the people who hurt the innocent, the children and women like my mother, those who generalize others based on misconceptions, stop with your misconceptions. Find the truth beneath the lies. The next time you want to mess around, pick on someone your own size. No, scratch that. I'm not here to fight. My mom raised me better. But I just pray that we can change our home together. Thank you. You know, I have to say, thank you. I have to say, thank you. I remember when I was a kid in Ramadan, it's like the blessed one of Ramadan, I had like Jamaican friends and Asian friends, and they'd all be over and they'd be fasting too. They're not even Muslim. They'd be fasting too. You know, and we'd all break our fast together, and we'd be like playing video games and stuff, and Mom would make us all stand up for salah, for prayer, and they don't even know a word, you know? But they'd stand up with us, we'd start praying together. They don't know what's going on, they're just following my uncle or whatever, you know? And that is what Canada is all about. That's what Canada's about. And I wish people understood that. And I know people do, but for this 0.001% of people that have the urge to do exactly what happened to my mom, like it's unfortunate. But I'm so proud to be Canadian. And I'm so proud to share these kind of narratives. And I'm so thankful that you shared the importance of talking about these narratives. Because my mom is an amazing woman, and she never deserved anything like that happening to her. But she's not the only Muslim person that's experienced this type of discrimination. In fact, it's not just Muslim people. It's people of every different walk of life. Even white people. What does that even mean, white people? You're putting people into a generalized box. What are they? Irish, Italian, Portuguese, Spanish? Because when all those people came to this country, whenever they came, they also got treated like second-class citizens. Some of them had to change their last name so they could get work to put food on the table for their families. So if I cut you, will you bleed? Will you? You will. If you cut me, will I bleed? I will. Pain is universal. And it's not just about Islam. It's about everybody. It's a human thing. And that's why I share this story. So that maybe we all come together and realize that it's not just about Muslim versus them. It's about people. It's people. That's all that it is. Thank you so much for listening. I'm so glad that I got to really appreciate it.
Thank you and shukran, Wali. I would now invite, just to close our evening, Imam Qasim Ingar for a recitation from the Holy Quran. Before doing that, I did want to thank you once again, Wali. Of course, he wants to be called Wali, but I'll have to adjust to that. Couple of things. I was trying to figure out, is it the cadence of Malcolm X or Jesse Jackson or Martin Luther King Jr., but I think you've got a great future, inshallah, as a verbal artist. And welcome again to our future members of Provincial Parliament who joined us on stage. I wanted to just, before inviting you, Imam, please join us. Wali was mentioning how members of other communities joined the Muslim community during the fast. I think all of us were deeply touched last year and the year before when the Premier of the province of Ontario joined us in the month of Ramadan to fast during that month. I have to say though, we got it right this year. The year before, we forgot to explain to the Premier that you can actually go back to sleep after 3:30 in the morning. So she did actually stay up the entire night. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the podium Imam Qasim Ingar.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I am going to recite few verses from Quran for the blessing of this gathering. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير. قالت الأعراب آمنا قل لم تؤمنوا ولكن قولوا أسلمنا ولما يدخل الإيمان وإن تطيعوا الله ورسوله لا يلتكم من أعمالكم شيئا إن الله غفور رحيم إنما المؤمنون الذين آمنوا بالله ورسوله ثم لم يرتابوا وجاهدوا بأموالهم وأنفسهم في سبيل الله أولئك هم الصادقون صدق الله العظيم.
Jazakallah khair. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I thank my honorable colleagues, Minister of Finance Charles Souza, Amrit Mangat, the Attorney General of the Province of Ontario, Yasser Naqvi, Indira Naidu-Harris, Minister responsible for the status of women, and our future members of Provincial Parliament, Sukhwan Teti and Nahid Yakubian, and most especially on behalf of Sister Kathleen, the Honourable Premier of the Province of Ontario. Merci beaucoup, shukran. And Harinder Mali MPP.